Welcome, everyone. My name is Susan Allan, and I am so excited to have you here with us today because today we have Dr. Patty DiBlasio visiting with us again and giving her special results, symptom relief for herself and her patients. And I'll tell you about her in a minute. And I want to just make a very brief announcement. As many of you know, Lifewave has 100 patents for stem cell patches and their other products because they've been proven to produce results. They work. Please know that the guests on this show are not diagnosing or prescribing. They are describing symptoms, and they're explaining how these symptoms were relieved for themselves and their patients or clients using Lifewave products. So that's important for everyone to remember. And today we have such a remarkable medical doctor with us. And Patty's been on our show before, so be sure to go and look at her earlier show for us because she's covering different information and different results for herself, her family, and her patients in each show she does. So Dr. Patty DiBlasio is the co-founder and medical director of the Esperanza San Clemente Clinic, and it's online and on-site. So you have those two options. And Patty was the medical director at Tesla. She was the medical director at Bayer Pharmaceuticals. She was a physician at the Kaiser System, and she is board certified by the American College of Preventive Medicine, as well as corporate and occupational medicine. So talk about experts and talk about expertise, and that's Patty. So welcome, Patty. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. I'm glad to be here and just be here with all of you. I love to be with Marci, so it's going to be a great show.
And everybody take notes. I certainly am. Every time we have an expert on this show, I have another page or so of notes. And Marci Preble, who we love so much, who is our fearless leader, who is one of the most successful brand ambassadors, really, not just a brand partner for Lifewave, and one of the most successful in the United States, and always an inspiration with love and with information. Welcome, Marci.
So happy to be here, Susan, with you and Dr. Patty, two of my most favorite people.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. And thank you. And we do this once a month. So make sure everybody, I'll tell you the schedule at the end of the show. Make sure you schedule it when you possibly can. And every show is posted on my YouTube channel. And thousands of you, I'm thrilled to say, watch the recordings as well. So the first question, Dr. Patty, is you recently found a solution for shingles after you experienced it. So please tell us.
Yes, I would love to share this with everyone. And as you guys know, officially, we're not treating any illness or disease. And so this may or may not even could be your experience with anything, but I can expand this a little bit more to just sort of some generalized pain, you know, because pain and itching run down some of the same pathways in our body. And those of us that sometimes have a lot of itching, which I do, sometimes it's painful, as you know. And so I think that this might be a really good protocol for many of you that have suffered from shingles or bad pain, itching, anything like that. For me, what I have learned is that there is that nerve pathway that if you can identify the one that's really bothering you, you can place multiple patches along that pathway, and it can be very effective. So I literally just began to do a bit of experimenting, following some of what David Schmidt talks about in regard to some of the patch placements. And what I decided that worked really well for me was to use the IceWave patch and put the brown on the focus of the pain if I could find it. And then put the white patch, as we know, somewhere either above or below at 12 or 6 o'clock, about 2 inches above or below that area of greatest pain. And then sometimes for serious illnesses and pain, you've got to have more. And so what I learned is that I could use the X39, the X49, and the Eon, and literally just sort of line them up along that nerve pathway that was so bothersome. And I had amazing results. As we know, some of these diseases can be so painful, and it's wonderful if we don't have to take something that can make you feel goofy or knocked out or not feeling good. And so you get a wonderful result. At least I did. Hopeful many of you could as well. And some of my patients can vouch for that too.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That's a huge one. And I've just gotten into localized patching protocols that I'm going to speak about at the end of the show. And so now you've given us one that is fantastic and I've not heard about before. So this is thrilling. And I will add that to the pain relief protocols. Now we have 12. This is now the 13th. So people can, email me or text me and ask for it and you'll get it, as so many of you have already. So the next situation you were talking about, Dr. Patty, is a 56-year-old patient of yours with cognitive issues. And you were finding that with the X39 and the X49, I believe, you had great results, and we'd love the placement for those two.
Yeah, so I think for the most part, because we know from David Schmidt's studies that X39 and 49 will probably give us maximal benefit if we're using them along the midline, so the back of the neck and under the belly button. And I have heard him say often that he puts X39 on the back of the neck and 49 about 2 finger widths below the navel, the belly button there, and that you can then get the greatest systemic effects. Now, if you're really looking for something that's more specific, like you have an area of pain, we all know we can put those pretty much anywhere on the body. But I think to get the maximal benefit, including for cognitive issues, this is what I recommended for my patient. And these were not major cognitive issues, but just lapses and not being able to remember words and things that many of us, do feel from time to time. And she felt a true sharpening of her cognition by using X39 and 49, 12 hours on in the day, 12 hours off at night.
Thank you so much. And by the way, one of my good friends has been a very close friend of David Schmidt's for more than 20 years. And she happens to be a supplement specialist. That's her business. And so I was very, very lucky. She didn't tell me about Lifewave, unfortunately. However, when I found out about it, I immediately called her. And so she recommended that for the older brain, which I am, that adding the carnosine was a big, big addition. And so I really encouraged that. I saw a huge difference. When I started using the carnosine in addition to the X39, the Eon, and the X49, my memory is better than it has ever been in my entire life. Better than it was in college, better than it was in prep school. Who would ever expect that? It's beyond any anticipation you would ever have. So this is great. And I so encourage every one of you, when you're listening to these suggestions of symptom relief, each of us knows hundreds and hundreds of people who have thousands of problems with their health or above the neck. That's the most serious part of a health issue, right? So, Marci, please explain to us the X39 and the X49 that Dr. Patty recommended in this last one, and we'll be speaking about the rest of the show today.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And, we were just with the professional NFL players just a few minutes ago. And just like you were saying, Dr. Patty, their big issue is dings or concussions, which cause traumatic brain injury. And so we were just talking above the neck, Susan, and the importance of healing there. And so let's talk about the X39, the X49. And if I may, I would also love to add carnosine, because you're right. Carnosine for the brain, I would agree. So X39, if you open it up, you can look inside. And what you see is organic crystal. It forms a lattice. And this crystal is made out of like amino acids, some sugar, water, little salt, and then it forms a crystal lattice. And then we actually have, we reflect low-grade infrared light off of our entire body. We know that's true because you could ask the military for night goggles, because they look at each other through them at night, and you will see a glow. That is our own light. So David says that this is a form of wearable light technology, which means light is, it's actually called photobiomodulation, light making change in the body. And when you put that patch on, it reflects back your own light back into your body, and that activates a peptide called GHK copper peptide. And that peptide calls your stem cells, and it activates them again. It makes more of them again. And what's the most important, it resets them to be young again, like when we were 20. The reason that's important is because stem cells are the only cells in your body that are changeable. As Dr. Patty says, they work like honing birds, and they go into the inflammation. And they say, oh, there's a piece. I'm going to turn into whatever cell I need to be to fix that. And that's why when you're 20, you have no gray hair. You have no wrinkles. You have no traumatic brain injury, because you're 20 and your stem cells are working. So X39 gets your stem cells working again. X49 activates a peptide called AHK. That's the daughter peptide of GHK. AHK happens to live in the brain and in the heart. So of course that's going to help with traumatic brain injury, because when you activate lean muscle mass in the brain and the heart, you're going to help the brain and the heart. In addition, X49 builds bones, and it also acts as a Faraday cage to shield you internally from cell phone radiation. So X49 is so important. And in fact, the NFL players that we just talked about, they're all using the X39, X49 combo for their brains. And carnosine, I'm going to tell them about, because carnosine also is in your brain and heart muscles. So of course, if you activate carnosine, you're going to be giving support to the brain and the heart. And in fact, carnosine supports every organ in the body: the brain, the heart, the pancreas, the liver, the kidneys. So carnosine is a very important technology. And I would say for the brain, if we're talking brain, I think you're right, Susan and Dr. Patty. These would be a great combination.
Thank you so much, Marci. And you and I did a show, maybe a year and a half ago, with Ivory Sully, a very, very famous NFL champion and the most charming person you could ever meet in your life. And he learned on the show about carnosine, and also the EON, which is the most powerful anti-inflammatory that exists because it's superoxide dismutase. It's the only thing that effectively takes damaged oxygen molecules and turns them back into oxygen. I've been using SOD myself every day since 1994. I'm an expert in it, studied it for years. So for any athlete, the reason that athletes suddenly have had health crises or sudden death, if you know about different runners, they don't die while they're in the sport, while they're exercising. It happens afterwards because all the free radicals start to pour into their bloodstream. So the EON is an essential thing for every single athlete to use, or even people like me. I'm just a person who loves to swim. I swim a lot, almost every day. So would you talk about the EON for a minute, Marci, if there's something you want to add?
Yeah, I would love to. And yes, of course, it activates superoxide dismutase, which is going to protect you from all that free radical damage, those little guys that are coming in there that are attacking your cells. Free radicals come from just like the energy of working your body, just like a car has exhaust. Free radicals is the exhaust in our bodies, right? But EON does one other thing that's pretty special. It activates a peptide in the liver that reduces inflammation. And Dr. Patty, I'm sure she'll come back and talk more about that. I learned this all from Dr. Patty on Thursdays. But Dr. Patty says that inflammation is an eater of stem cells. So if you go get a big old injection in your knee of stem cells from your bone marrow, first of all, it's your old stem cells that aren't activated. Second of all, the inflammation in your knee is just going to eat it anyway. So David says, activate your own stem cells, turn them young again with X39, add EON, and then EON will eat the inflammation. So the inflammation doesn't eat the activated stem cells. And David says what that does is it turbocharges the X39 to work better. So I like to say this is like my dynamic duel, so to speak. I always start with these two, Susan, for myself personally. They're very good.
Perfect. Exactly. And, many of us started that way. We didn't realize there were all these other patches. Now you can email or text me and ask for the patch poster that has them all listed. And then you'll start to see, and I use all of the patches except the one for horses. So every other patch I have, and I've considered, do I really need that one? Oh, yes, I really do. So Patty, if you would tell us about your patient who has so much more energy now that her workouts are completely revolutionized.
I think that both, again, the X39 and 49 can be super helpful. And I always want my patients to start with X39. Marci and I sort of created some protocols where we use X39, 49, and EON. EON's our companion to the stem cell patches. I think, like Marci said, I love that. Marci turbocharged. Then we add whatever other additional patch may be helpful. But my patient has had great results. Excuse me, I've got just a little sip here. And she just said she wakes up every morning and she just feels like that. It's just amazing how much better she's doing. I'm going to need a little more water. I'm going to have to excuse myself. Sorry, I'm not sick, but I'm just starting to cough. Excuse me.
And I will say, Susan, the other patch that Dr. Patty always talks about as that complementary patch, she does different protocols for her patients. And one of them is the detox protocol that's X39, X49, EON. But her other favorite is glutathione. And, she did a show on this a couple of weeks ago. And what was interesting is what she said is that glutathione is your master pathway. It's your master antioxidant pathway and detox pathway. And you can go get glutathione, IVs, liposomally, but they only have a 7-minute half-life and they push it in way too fast, where the glutathione from Lifewave activates it for 12 hours. And even people that have, what's that called, Dr. Patty? Methylation issues. They don't have a gene that works right. Those cells, your own cells, because we're activated through light, slowly start taking it up. And maybe Dr. Patty would like to finish talking about it, because that was interesting how glutathione can slowly activate in our system to detoxify it.
Yes, that's true. And, about 1/4 of all of us, I'm not sure what Marci said just previously, briefly, but about 1/4 of us all have what we call methylation issues. And it sounds really fancy or hard to sort of wrap your head around, but basically it just means we don't detox. And normally the way our body works, chemically, some of you can go back to your high school chemistry, or maybe none of you have even had chemistry, but it's pretty easy just to think about there's just a particular chemical group that normally latches on to a lot of toxins in our body. And those of us that have those methylation issues, it just doesn't latch on as well. And so I just pretty much assume if 1 out of 4 people at least has it, I know I have this issue. I just assume that probably many of my patients, particularly those of us that tend to have more chronic illness, we really don't detox as well. That's one of our problems. And so that's why it's so wonderful to have access to the glutathione patch, because I was never able to take glutathione. I was too sensitive to it, and you don't absorb it very well anyway. So the patch is just a wonderful way to help us to continually detox. We have a good lifestyle too, right? We don't want to bring in a lot of toxins that we have to detox. So we try to have good lifestyle choices, good eating habits, eating organic, drinking good water, purified water, and so on. So we don't bring a lot of toxins into our body, but we're just going to have some toxins there because we live in an environment, the air and the water and the food often has toxins. And so we need a way to detox. And I just love glutathione. That's one of my favorite patches, and my husband's too.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And would you finish what you were going to say about your patient who has found incredible workout results? And again, always tell us where the placement is for the patches, which is so helpful.
Yes. So I think it's really good. You know, one thing, just a little tip that I've learned through doing some DNA testing on myself and some of my patients, but one of the best ways you can help your brain, sort of going back to your brain, is to try to do a workout before you actually eat your breakfast. Now, you have to make sure your blood sugar is stable. You certainly need to speak to your doctor about this to make sure that you're not, there would be some people that might be contraindicated and not the wise thing to do. But if possible, if you can do a workout before breakfast, that's helpful. So this particular patient of mine, that's what she was doing. We were advising her to do this. And so what she would do is she'd get up in the morning, drink plenty of water. She would put on her X39, the back of her neck, X49, 2 finger widths below her belly button, and she'd go do her workouts. And then she would always top it off later after she finished her workouts with a really good protein smoothie that we had some recipes for. And it was just a dynamic, combination for her. And again, that turbocharged, love that word. That'll be our word for today. But it's the synergy of putting all that together was just wonderful for her. And so I've been starting to recommend this as well to other patients and even to myself. I don't do super charged workouts, but I do walking and yoga and things like that. And so on days I can, I try to follow that. I always start in the morning putting that X39 and 49 on to get myself going.
And I also discovered from Micah Clark, who was Marci and my guest some months ago, the benefit of the energy enhancer patches, that it's like the pilot light under your burners on your stove, which I had not known. And that was really fascinating. So if you haven't watched that show, everybody, I really recommend that you do. And Marci, tell us, please, about the IceWave patches. And also, would you tell us about the energy enhancers so everyone understands?
Well, yeah. And I just love that we're all working out now, because I just started training with Coach Micah about 8 weeks ago. And I'm so proud of myself. You know what my new logo is, Dr. Patty and Susan?
Wow.
Let's work out our chronic diseases.
Oh, good.
Let's work them out, because
Absolutely.
I believe when we work out, we're going to increase our oxygen and bye-bye to any of those issues. And so I'll just say energy, you're right. It is like a pilot light because it activates the mitochondria in the cells. And Coach Micah actually has me, well, one day I was at the gym because I'm working on strength training, so weights. And Susan wasn't very strong. Like I just couldn't do it that day. I don't know why. It's just the strength wasn't there. And he goes, here's what he says. Do you have your energy patches on? And I said, oh, no. He goes, well, you better go get them. And of course, I always have them with me. So I got my energy. And he says, put them on the white on the right, on your upper outside shin, the brown on your left outside shin. And then what he did is, it was almost like a pressure point. He took his thumbs and he pushed in, so it activated. I'm not kidding you. Oh, and then he said, and while you're at it, you have your ice wave on? And I said, well, no. He goes, we better do that too. And so white on the lower back of the right side and tan on the left side. And once again, he activated those with his fingers on me. And right away, I felt my core strengthen up. It just went boom. And my energy in my shins went boom. I was just like, I could feel it like that. And then I went on this machine where you do these squats, but it's a sit squat, so you don't hurt your knees or whatever. All of a sudden, I was just pushing them up like it was no big deal. And I know it was stabilizing the core with ice wave, activating the mitochondria, the powerhouse in my cells, and fire starting it. I will tell you, ice wave will stabilize the core, will stabilize the nervous system. But most people know ice wave as a way for pain relief, because David says pain's in the connective tissue. So you put the brown patch where it hurts the most, the white patch a few inches away, and it breaks the connection of pain. That's ice wave. Now, I do have it on my wrist. Somebody asked me today, why do I have it on my wrist? Well, I've been working out a lot and I broke my wrist about 4 months ago. So it still aches. And it was just aching today, Susan. And so here's the brown patch where it hurts the most. There's the ice wave white. And then I put an X39 for repair and an Eon for repair, because I believe that is a dynamic set for pain and repair. And I believe that's on one of Dr. Patty's protocols. She would add the X49 with that for bone, to grow the bone. And I probably should have that one on too. But anyway, here you go.
Actually, you're using one of my localized protocols. It was developed for one of my clients in my coaching business whose son thought he had a broken ankle. And he was at camp. And you know what young, person wants to go off to a hospital and all that other misery while he's at camp. So I spoke to his mother, who's my client, and she's already a brand partner in Lifewave. And I recommended that they put a bracelet of exactly the patches you described around his ankle. And the very next day, and they postponed taking him off because he wasn't in extreme pain or anything, but it hurt. And so the very next day he woke up in the morning, all symptoms gone. He was in perfect shape. And so a miracle. And now it's so thrilling to see you do that as a bracelet instead of an anklet. That's beautiful. That's great.
Any spot will do, and just love the spot. And you know what I mean? I love that bracelet, ankle. Let's just fix ourselves. Yes.
Exactly. You just said this is the perfect segue to one of the things I'm going to say today. So I have a 2-page document of Susan Allan's physical issues that disappeared with various Lifewave patches. 2 pages, wow. 2.5 years. It starts at the top of my head, hair or memory. It ends at the bottom of my feet where swimming 84 laps, 64 laps, depending, whatever, I bumped my toe. So it's every part of my body has literally come back online, been improved, repaired, etc. Now, this is just mine. I'm not saying it's yours, but I'm saying I've been at this now for 2.5 years, assiduously studying these patches with 35 shows with Marci, with the most incredible guests, most of whom are healthcare professionals. And I've listened to everything everyone has said, including, of course, Dr. Patty DiBlasio. And so start making your own list. Start making your own list. There's not a problem that exists from my head to my toes, that my first thought isn't, I've got a drawer full of patches, which is the one I need now? Or what's the combination? And in every single case, the symptom is gone. Now, am I going to go swimming in a couple of days and bump something? Maybe. I have the solution. Is anything possibly going to happen? I have the solution. And so do you if you're using these patches. Okay. So, Patty, you have a 55-year-old patient who's had a lot of pain in his knee. And so he's using the patches. Would you tell us what you discovered and what you recommended?
Sure. So this patient has had chronic knee problems for probably 30 years, particularly his right knee. And so what we did is we started with the Eon patch, literally right in the middle of his kneecap, because he had pain pretty equally over his whole knee. And if he would have had maybe more pain on the right side, I'd have moved it a little bit more to the right side of the kneecap. Same thing, left side, move it a little more to the left side. But for him, it was just pretty much equally his whole knee. So we just smacked that little Eon patch right there on his, the middle of his kneecap. And then he also had some issues just with sort of neuropathy in his leg, particularly his lower leg from the knee down to the ankle. And so we decided to just try again. That's what I love about medicine. And I've said this before, if any of you have been with me in a Zoom meeting before, but it's like, medicine is not just a science, it's an art. And so, and you as the patient, you research so much about yourself and you learn so much. And I, as a physician, like to be a partner with my patient. I have some knowledge, they have some knowledge, we put it together. And so that's why you can begin to do more of the art part. We listen to David Schmidt, we follow his instructions, we follow the instructions on the patches that are on the website. But we also can begin to say, you know what, I've got this specific issue for me. Just like Susan said, let's think about what we could do. And if you have a functional medicine doctor or a practitioner that's working with you, that's holistic, then, get their input and sort of put it together. And so that's what we did. And we found, again, that area of greatest pain on the front of his mid shin is where it was. And we put that brown Icewave patch. And then we tried the white patch. And if you haven't been able to go onto the website, if you're looking at Icewave patches on the website, scroll all the way down to the bottom and you'll see a tab called Usage. And if you click that on, there's lots of instructions. There's video to show you how the clock method works with the Icewave patches. And what that means is, if it's a nerve pain, like I said before, and here's the worst pain, you're going to put that white patch either at 12 or at 6 to be on the nerve. But if it's the knee, for example, or the shin, what we did with him is we moved it around. We tried it at 12 o'clock. We tried it at 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock to see which area would be the best place to put that white patch. Because what we're trying to do is interrupt that energy and electrical signal of pain. And so that's what we did. We experimented with where would be the best place to put it. And David Schmidt demonstrates it so well. You just take off just one side of the patch so that you still have the other sticky part covered. And you just try it in those 4 places until you find the place that the patient says, that's the best spot. And then you take off the other sticky other side so that you've got your full sticky patch and you stick it on there at that spot. And so that's what we did with this patient. And he was just very surprised that literally it's, for most patients, it's a pretty instant thing where there is improvement at the very least. And for some patients, they go, I don't even feel the pain or barely feel it. And he was so amazed. He could walk, he could get around better. just almost instantly, and then has been doing that and having great success with it. So I would highly recommend a little bit of artistic on your part, and you may be able to make a big difference in that kind of pain using Aeon and IceWave.
And you certainly can. Marci and I have now 35 shows in which we talk about how we didn't have any more pain or they didn't have any more pain, and that's why all of you were watching. So let us go now to a topic that's really important, almost as serious and miserable as pain is depression. Mm-hmm. So Patty, I know that you have a patient who found a tremendous benefit with Nirvana. Tell us about that, please.
Yes. And, you know, I think one of the biggest things in our society now is that people do suffer from depression and mood swings and anxiety, and it's just rampant. And the problem is that the drugs that are out there that are officially FDA approved have so many side effects. And I always want to look at benefit and risk for my patient. And I'm like this. Most of my patients are very sensitive to medications. And if I take something like that, I almost always get a side effect that's worse than the medication. And so when I began to hear about IceWave for pain and Nirvana for mild depression, and again, I do want to say at this point, someone that has serious depression, you must be working with your doctor. We want you to be safe. But there are many people that just have a bit of sort of up and down. You have a better day, a worse day, but it's that mild form of depression. And rather than getting on a big drug that has a lot of side effects, things like making you feel very groggy, your brain feels dull, you feel like you're sort of in a stupor, you have no sex drive. Sometimes you are sleepy, but you can't get deep sleep. Your energy levels are just plummeting. So those are the kinds of side effects we do not want to have for quality of life. And yet, sometimes we get so desperate when we've got depression and just don't feel real good. So after reaching out to your doctor, making sure that you're safe and good and all of those things, Nirvana can be a great choice. And the reason is because it doesn't have the side effect potential. And so you're looking at benefit. There's no drugs in these patches. Remember, I couldn't get my head wrapped around that at first. This stimulates your own body to release more endorphins. And that is what helps not only with pain, Nirvana can help with pain too, but also with our moods and how we feel, and just a greater sense of well-being. And so I had a patient, a young woman, same things, that she's tried this and it's been so helpful to her, and many things haven't worked. And we do know with Nirvana that there also is the tablets that you can take as well. And that can be very helpful for people that need even more help in addition to the patch.
Thank you. And, you know, the most dangerous part I find with all the clients I've moved towards different healthcare professionals to get off of antidepressant medication, the worst part of it is the toxicity in their liver. And so thank goodness with our X39 and our Aeon, because as Marci said, the Aeon helps with getting rid of the inflammation in the liver, which kills even healthy stem cells. And then the glutathione, which eliminates toxicity over time. It's the most powerful thing that you can use, the most powerful. And as a patch, it's been proven to be 300 times more powerful than the glutathione drips that some of my clients used to use. So we're talking about a solution plus a solution plus a solution plus a solution. Every single thing about the Lifewave products is a solution that's safe, that's been proven. You can look at the patents, you can look at the peer reviews. There's an entire large section, which is the science page on the website. And if you go down to the black section at the bottom of the homepage, you'll see it. It says science. And a lot of people don't even know that it's there. And it's huge. And it gives you all the information for friends and family and healthcare providers, you know, so that everyone can get pain-free and healthy. Okay, speaking of getting healthy. So I think the most remarkable thing, Dr. Patty, is that you had a lousy diagnosis. Nobody wants to have that diagnosis and, you know, MS. And yet here you are, as you told us in the last show, pain-free. So tell us what your protocol is for yourself.
Well, that's how I came into Lifewave, was through a patient of mine who told me about how Lifewave patches were helping her with her pain. And I listened to her. Her gynecologist had recommended Lifewave to her. I reached out to her gynecologist and began to talk about, whoa, something that really could help pain, but it wasn't going to have all the side effects of typical pain medications. And so as I began to research, I felt like I went back to medical school because I really couldn't believe that it would work. But I found that actually that we had lots of studies out there. It made sense. The doctor I spoke to had patients and herself major help. And so I began to look at Lifewave for myself. And that is where I first started with X39 and Lifewave. And I have pain at night. And I don't accept the diagnosis of MS as this is my disease forever, but I do have symptoms of it right now. And one of the worst symptoms is pain at night. And many of you that have pain and itching know that it gets worse at night. Those of you that have depression often will notice it gets worse at night. And that's because our cortisol levels fall at night. And that actually some cortisol in our body is good. We don't want too much to be too stressful, but we need some. And as those cortisol levels fall at night, sometimes you just feel like, the pain's coming back, the itching's coming back. I don't feel happy. And so we need to recognize that. It won't upset us so much, but we know then that we look at it. We might want to use Nirvana at night if that's the case, rather than during the day. Same thing with Lifewave patches. And so I looked at the protocols like we talked about before, and there is a protocol for full body pain, which is basically what I was getting at night. And I patched the bottoms of my feet, and I began to follow the protocol. Tried it on my wrists, tried it on my elbows, tried it on my shoulders on either side. And I love what Marci says. It's like you bookmark it. So on the bottom of your feet and ultimately the top of my shoulders. And I was stunned. The first night I had about a 50% reduction because I had the top here. And so as I began to move it up to the elbows, and that actually works great for me too, and my shoulders, I was able to sort of just, bookend that pain and interrupt those energy signals and electrical signals like we talked about before. And I have about an 80% reduction at night, which is just incredible to me. And I'm so thankful for the Lifewave patches. I don't know what to do. And then when I get additional pain, sometimes that's what happens with autoimmune diseases. New things crop up. I know I have Lifewave. And I told my husband just a couple of nights ago, I said, honestly, I just don't know what I'd do without Lifewave. So, and I do think it's important though, to make sure you're using X39 at the very least. I use, I'm like Susan. I just, I have my patch arsenal and I use all the patches off and on as needed, and some of them every day. So
beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Patty, for all of this really, really, really wonderful, valuable, life-changing information. And as always, thank you, Marci, for loving us into wellness and being such an inspiration to us. Really, it's such a joy, once a month to be with you, Marci, and Dr. Patty. Can't wait to have you on for the third show soon, So we do this show the second Thursday of every month. Please join us. It's always at the same time. It's always the same login on Zoom. You'll see the invitation. It's always on Telegram, Facebook, everywhere else. Marci, thank you for sending it out. Thank you so much to every one of you who has asked for the 12 patching pain relief protocols, now that they're going to be 13. Thank you for asking for Micah Clark's patching protocols. And I want to hear from each of you. What are your localized patching protocols that work for you? Email me, text me. I want to see them. Susan@susanallan.org. It's ALLAN. And please be sure to watch all of the shows that Marci and I have done with such incredible healthcare experts who know so much about the Lifewave patches. And be sure to ask your friend who told you about Lifewave so that you can buy them yourself, use them yourself, learn more about them. So go back to that person in every case. And we look forward to seeing you. And all the shows are housed at youtube.com/Susan Allan 2001. That's ALLAN. And this show will be available for you to rewatch, take more notes, and for your friends in about 10 days. Thank you so much. Have a great, great week.